It's that time of the week where we talk about what the world is talking about. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fresh Outlook. I'm Mia Toski. This week, we will talk about the deal that the U.S. and 5 other world powers have signed with Tehran to curb its nuclear program. But despite the deal, there are still tough oil-related sanctions on Iran. And many Canadian politicians are expressing shock and anger over a report that the National Security Agency conducted widespread surveillance during a summit meeting of world leaders. Is this intelligence gathering or spying on world leaders? We will tackle that question. And even though most people think turkey when they talk about Thanksgiving, shopping is also now a big part of the holiday. We'll talk about the protests, the craziness, and what stores are doing to lure consumers in an uncertain economy. But first, we turn our attention to an encouraging interim deal with Iran. Iran's new president, Hassan Rouhani, has agreed to not only halt its nuclear program for the next 6 months, but actually take a step back. In exchange, Iran will now have access to about $4.2 billion held in currently frozen bank accounts. The secret discussions began in August when Rouhani took office and could mean a big change in the relationship between the two countries. Let's have a look.
The White House says that Iran would not advance its activities at Iraq or progress toward plutonium production.
The reason we put specific requirements in place is because, we wanted to ensure that Iraq would not be operational in this time frame.
Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif says that while his country is honoring the deal, construction on building projects would continue.
We're not sure exactly what he means by construction in the comments that he makes, but there will be no work on the reactor in the comments he made, but there will be no work on the reactor itself, no work to prepare fuel for the reactor or do additional testing of the reactor.
Psaki says that road or building work might be allowable, but nuclear fuel production, reactor work, testing, control systems advances, and other activities are not permissible. But even minor progress at Iraq could bring claims by Israel and other opponents of the deal that Iran is violating its rules and spirit. Heavy water reactors, such as Iraq, produce a greater amount of byproduct plutonium that can be used in nuclear weapons production if extracted by a special process. Iran has pledged not to pursue facilities that could separate the plutonium.
And to talk more about this, we are joined by former White House aide Didi Benke, Dr. Stephen Bronner, professor of political science at Rutgers University, and media analyst Jackie Guzda. We welcome you all and also say happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for coming in on this holiday weekend. So, all right, let's talk about this. This is pretty groundbreaking, what has happened between the two countries. Didi, we're going to take the temperature here and start around the room and just talk to me about this, what is really a groundbreaking announcement.
Yeah, I agree with Netanyahu that it's a historic mistake. I don't think this is going to work. We're getting nothing out of the deal in the end, and they're going to get whatever they want. They're going to build what they want, and really, they have a very bad track record of telling the truth. So just not a good deal.
Dr. Bronner, your thoughts on this? Obviously, a new president.
I think it's just the opposite. I think that you don't make deals with your friends, treaties with your friends. You make treaties with your enemies. And the fact of the matter is there's not much of an alternative position except paralysis or bombing. And I don't think anybody wants that. And this is a step in the right direction, I think.
And Jackie, where are you coming from?
Yeah, Didi, you're going to get over this, and let me tell you why. That what we have now is a little bit of control over Iran's nuclear program, something that was unheard of maybe 6 months ago. Now, what we're doing also is getting a balance in the Middle East. The game has changed. There's a new regime. Rouhani wants the people's support, and he's going to get it by having these sanctions lifted in Iran now.
And Rouhani also sees that Iran has been obviously crippled financially in the last couple of years, so this is also going to bring some necessary dollars. Let's talk about those dollars, $4.2 billion. In the easings of these sanctions. And Didi, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, I just think it makes us look weak. I think it's absolutely the wrong tactic, and to do that, it's like, here, you get whatever you want. We don't get anything. We don't know what's going to happen, and they just have a very bad track record.
Well, let's go back.
And I think Israel, whenever Israel is up in arms like that, it's not a good thing. They're our friends. This is a bad deal.
I don't think Benjamin Netanyahu is my friend.
Well, there you go.
I think that Israel has been obstructionist on this from the beginning, and it's lets you and him fight. That was the position vis-a-vis the United States. And in terms of getting stuff from Iran, the opening to investment is what we get, and we don't get a war, and we at least have a position that we're putting forward. Our moral standing improves. As things stand now, there's just no alternative. I mean, what's the alternative position?
Well, I've also always wondered, Israel obviously has its nuclear weapons, and why they were dictating to Iran in certain ways.
There are allies and friends. Iran is not. I mean, they have been problems. I mean, good grief. I mean, they come into the UN and they bash us left and right, and
that was before. That was a previous
what do you
regime.
mean before? You know, look, you are supposed to be good to your friends. You're not supposed to be supportive of people that you
Things
have not
have
been
changed
supportive.
in Iran. You're
Well, I
talking
don't
back
think so.
from 1979 to maybe a year ago. Things have changed. There was an uprising
This is a
by
bad
the
deal.
citizens
It makes
of
us
Iran.
look weak. Again, you know,
No,
we have a bad deal in Syria.
Israel specifically does not want to dismantle the uranium enrichment program. That's really what they're most upset about.
Yeah, I mean, if you take a position, you go in and you say, "Well, I want everything before we start to talk." That's not negotiations. And the fact of the matter is, from the Iranian standpoint, the distrust of the United States goes back to the 50s, when President Mossadegh was overthrown, a democratically elected government. And the fact of the matter is, the type of policy, the type of foreign policy that's been pushed has been far more working with Iran than one would think behind the scenes. This is true on Afghanistan, and now it's also going to be true on Syria.
Well,
you can't have a Syrian peace without Iran. It's not happening.
But it's still going to be a very
That's not
uphill
working very
battle.
well either.
Well, it hasn't started yet.
No,
I mean,
no, because the president handed it over to Putin. Maybe he should handle this as well. I mean, it's just a total fail in foreign policy. This is not going to work.
It's ridiculous.
No, it's not ridiculous. And by the way, Israel is our friend. I don't know why you'd say that.
So let's talk about Rouhani for a moment.
Right.
This is a new regime. This is a new leader. Let's talk about his personality and what we're seeing so far. Obviously, much different from the last president. Do you think that his personality is that he's going to be more open to working with world leaders?
I don't think it's so much the personality, but look, he's got the Iranian people that he's got to please if he wants to stay in power. Ahmadinejad was not the easiest person in the world to work with. We all know that. Rouhani is going to bring a new peace, hopefully, to that Middle Eastern region. Why? Because all those powers have to get along. Now, the powers are shifting. Israel's not happy because we are not throwing complete 100% support behind them in their eyes because we're supporting Iran. But as you said, Iran is going to open new doors for new commerce. There's going to be lifted sanctions. The people will have more, and there's going to be more of a balance of power in the Middle East.
Well, I want to go to Dr. Bronner for a moment and ask, you said that without Iran, you will not have peace in Syria.
That's right.
Can you explain that a little further?
Yeah. Iran is a Shiite regime. It's supporting the Assad factions, and its more militant elements within Iran are actually sending guns and fighters over there. That has to stop. But there have been negotiations in the past, and with it's easy to have friends if you spend $4.5 billion a year on them, and that's what's been happening with Israel. And it's a mistake to identify the state with the regime. That's why I could say Netanyahu is not my friend. Israel may be, but if you, this has been
I can't believe you're saying that.
I am completely, totally with him.
Absolutely.
Netanyahu has
Let's hear
always
from
had the
Didi for a
biggest
second.
stick.
No, Israel. They've always been huge allies of ours.
First of all, we had
and
that.
Israel.
Even that's not
and
true.
not Iran. So,
Right.
I mean, for you to take the side of Iran in this, I just think is unbelievable.
Why are you turning it into bad
Because that's
and
what
good?
it is. Because that's what it is. Exactly.
Maybe I should look a little deeper into it
No,
because it's not what it
believe me,
is
this
today.
has gone on for a long time, and
Right.
we are giving this huge amount of money, for nothing. We're getting nothing back. They're just saying,
What?
well, that's
we are
in the
getting
past.
to look at Iran's nuclear program on
Yeah,
a
right.
on
Yeah,
a
good luck
daily
with that.
on
Don't
a
believe
daily
it.
basis.
Don't believe it.
How much do we get
Don't
from
believe it at
gives
all.
to Israel?
Yeah, what do we get from Israel?
Well, how about their allies, and how about they help
What
in the
do
Middle
they
East? We get
help?
nothing from Iran.
They have-
nothing from Iran.
all we do
For you to
is
say, I
cost.
can't believe you're all taking Iran's side on this. It's just
not-
unbelievable
It's not
to me.
a side.
Everything is not a matter
Absolutely it
of
is.
bad and
Well,
good.
why don't you tell Israel that? Because
I
they
would
disagree
be
with you.
ha-
I'm with them.
happy.
Well, let's talk about
with
what
Netanyahu.
this deal, interim deal, as they're calling it, really means. They're still going to be restricting some of the purchases of oil from Tehran. Is that going to be a good idea? Is that, I mean, they're still going to get the $4 billion, but they're still holding some restrictions back.
Well, I mean, this is a process. This is only just beginning, and negotiations don't go that fast.
Not only that, I think the
that's-
timing's weird.
right.
Whenever Obamacare is coming up, and think that's a distraction with that too.
No,
And I didn't
that's
well thought
not
out.
an issue in the
You don't know that.
That's a red herring.
Absolutely. No,
Yeah.
you don't know that
You
at
can
all.
never
It's
prove-
all
Hang on.
just very
Let's, you know what?
interesting timing, isn't it?
Let's all go. Let's have final thoughts on this subject because we're running out of time on this one. But certainly a very heated topic here. Final thoughts, Jackie.
This is only a 6-month deal. We are allowed to go in and look at what Iran is doing on a daily basis. As I said before, this is going to shift the power. Israel doesn't like it because the United States isn't giving them as much. However, it's going to have an equality, which is only going to bring peace to the Middle East and to the United States.
And there was a talk of a chalice. I don't know if anybody saw that, a chalice that they actually gave. Did nobody ever heard about that? One of the ambassadors actually gave an actual chalice from the 7th century.
Oh, wow.
But Dr. Bronner,
I
final?
think this is a no-brainer, and simply because there's not much of an alternative to put to it. The alternative is either do nothing, keep things the way they are, or bomb, which nobody wants. So that's the first part of it.
Those are the only two alternatives.
That's it. Nobody's put forward anything.
Well, we're having
Nobody on the right is putting
the
put forward
alternative,
anything.
yeah, is the negotiations, which we're doing now, which
Yeah.
is the right choice.
Yeah, that's it. As far as I'm concerned, no one in the United States is not ready for another military intervention. And certainly with regard to Israel, Israel should not be dictating American foreign policy. And on top of that, President Netanyahu is not Israel.
That's right.
President
Oh no, he has
Netanyahu-
nothing to do with Israel.
Well, hang on. Let
No, I
him
said
finish.
How about
it doesn't
that?
We're just doing final thoughts.
It doesn't equal Israel. He is the head of a party which is actually in coalition with other parties to run the regime.
Let's have Dee Dee.
Well, I guess time will tell, but I think this is a bad deal. It will not take long to figure out who our friends are and who they are not. Historically speaking, that would be Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu, and definitely think that this is something of a distraction. So our foreign policy president fails again.
Well, I'm going to show you all that picture of the chalice that was also part of the negotiations.
Let's see the
so I'm
chalice.
sorry you did not see that, but don't go away, everyone. We're going to come right back. The National Security Agency knows if you've been naughty. In documents reportedly leaked by whistleblower Edward Snowden, the United States reportedly conducted widespread surveillance while world leaders were gathered in Toronto for the G20 summit. A lot of Canadians are not happy, even though the country's top spy agency apparently knew about it. We'll be right back.